Thank you so much, Nika. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our launch event. I'm very, very excited. Thank you, Abdi, for being here tonight. And I want to start reading a little sneak peek of my books. So here the whole time, just for people who don't know, it's a story about Felipe, he's a fat gay kid. He's very shy, very anxious, and all he wanted for his winter break is to spend some free school time watching Netflix and doing nothing. And his neighbor from apartment 57, Caio, is spending 15 days at his house, and this is kind of his worst nightmare because he has a crush on Caio like since forever. So right now I'm going to be reading a piece from the early beginning of the book where Felipe explains to us why he's so nervous about having Caio as a host in his house for 15 days. So let me just get the page right. I'm a little bit nervous. So let's go. You're probably thinking, calm down, dude. It's just the neighbor kid. Maybe it's time I told you about Caio, the neighbor kid from apartment 57. Our apartment complex has a large recreation area with a tennis court that no one's ever used because honestly, who plays tennis? A little playground that's falling apart, and a pool that's neither big nor small, but it's always crowded on hot days. When I was a kid, the pool was my very own private ocean. I spent hours swimming from one end to the other, recreating scenes from The Little Mermaid. And it was in that pool that I met Caio. I can't quite recall the day or how we started talking. We were pool buddies, and I can't remember what my childhood was like before that. If you're a fat 8-year-old boy, no one calls you Butterball. Everyone thinks you're cute, pinches your cheeks, and always makes it very clear how much they want to eat you up in a sweet way. Weird, but still sweet. When you were you feel when I was 8, I didn't feel embarrassed about running around wearing nothing but a speedo or jumping into the pool and splashing water everywhere. Because when you're 8, it's okay. And that's how Caio and I became best friends. We never went to the same school. Caio goes to a private school on the other side of town. But when we were younger and it was a hot day, I knew all I had to do was go downstairs to the pool and Caio will be there, ready to swim with me. Rainy days were the worst. We never talked. Kids don't really talk when they're at the pool. We would scream and dive and compete to see who could stay underwater the longest. We didn't have time to talk because at any moment, Caio's mom would stick her head out of the window, yelling his name, and the fun would be over just like that. His mom was always that type, the type who yells. Somewhere in the middle of all the fun and no talking, I had a day I've never forgotten. I must have been around 11, and after almost an entire afternoon playing sharks and pirates, I was the pirate, Caio was the shark, I suggested without an ounce of fear, do you want to play mermaids? None of the other kids in the building knew that I loved to play mermaids. It was something I did just for me. I was afraid of what the other boys might think of me when they found out that when I went underwater, in my head, I was a Rio. And that deep at the bottom of the pool, I kept my imaginary collection of forks, mirrors, and thingamabobs. Caio just smiled, crossed his leg to form a tail, and dove underwater. He didn't care to know how to play. He didn't say he'd play only if he could be a merman. He merely went along with my silly fantasy, and we swam like mermaids until dusk. It was the best day ever. After that, everything went by a blur. As I grew up, the shame of wearing a Speedo in front of Caio grew with me. I didn't quite understand what I felt exactly, but I know that when I was 12, I started wearing a shirt whenever I went to the pool. And after I turned 13, I never set foot in the pool again. At 13, my body began to change. Hair started growing everywhere, and I had this urge to kiss someone on the lips. And I wanted that first person to be Caio. It was ridiculous how hard I have fallen for him. But he's way out of my league. It's like being in love with the lead singer of our favorite boy band. All you can do is watch from afar and dream. Now, do you understand my despair? fat, gay, and in love with a boy who won't even acknowledge my good morning in the elevator. Everything could go wrong. Everything will go wrong. And I don't even have time to come up with an exit X tragedy because the doorbell is ringing and my mom is opening the door, and I, of course, am covered in sweat. So it begins. And this is the end of the first part. And the
Yay!
book goes on and on for 15 days.
It's so beautiful. I love this book so much. For everyone out there, please send your questions. We'll have a Q&A at the end of the conversation. I'm so honored to be here because the book is amazing. And also, for those who don't know, Vitor translated my latest novel, Like a Love Story, into Tipo una historia de amor. So I'm like filled with gratitude for him. Okay, so I guess first, like this is your US launch. So, I
Yeah.
mean, the obvious question, how does it feel to have a book published in the US as a Brazilian author? And, what are your expectations of it or your fears of it? What emotions come up for you?
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of fears and a lot of expectations, and it's kind of weird because it took me a really long time to understand that this is really happening. Because when you're talking about publishing books, it's always things taking so long to actually happen, and sometimes we're just celebrating with friends and family to something that will only happen like 2 years after that. And when it finally happens, it doesn't feel like something new. But this time it's so different, and it's so weird because everything feels so different right now and so new. Because, well, this book is out in Brazil since 2017, and I've been hearing stories from the readers about it for about 3 years now. And right now, every reader that came to me to tell a little bit about their experiences, and we had a lot of readers who received the art for the book. It's so interesting to see how American readers perceive things that Brazilian readers didn't, and how those experiences can be different in very subtle ways. And at the same time, what are those things that are universal, that
Yeah.
everyone notice and everyone talks to you about. It's been really wild. The book is out since Thursday, and the last 3 days were have been great.
Good. Well, I'm so happy. I mean, so building off of that, I'm so curious, like in the translation process, were there things that changed? And especially like your book is so full of pop culture references, like everyone, Miley's in it, Gaga, Britney, Madonna, Michelle Pfeiffer. Like I was just curious, like when it was published in Brazil, was it, were those Brazilian pop culture references or was it the same people? Like what was that process of translation?
we had some we had to change some stuff because there was some references that are very Brazilian, about Brazilian girl bands and Brazilian TV hosts and Brazilian movies. And I think we thought that we could change to turn Felipe into a more relatable character. But there are the other things that are pretty much universal, and Felipe has a lot of pop culture references from things that comes from the US and the UK, because those are universal things that is really part of the what so-called gay culture.
Right.
And Felipe has this in you because I have this in me, so I had to fill my book with some of those references. And we have to change a little bit of things about some snacks and food. There's a very specific scene where Felipe talks about, in the Portuguese version, he talks about how he hates a snack called Cheetos requeijão. Requeijão is something that we have here in Brazil, that it's almost like a cream cheese, but a more gooey and it smells like feet and it's terrible. And Cheetos requeijão, it's horrible and Felipe hates it. But in the US, you don't have Cheetos requeijão. Lucky for you. So Orlando came with the idea to put some chicken and waffles lace, and that sounded as weakly as equally disgusting to me. So we changed that to this. But most of the pop culture's references that Felipe has, it's the same in the Brazilian
Right.
version and the US version.
It's so fascinating. So I'm now I want to go back to the very, very beginning of the novel. I guess before the novel to the dedication, which I think is so moving. Which I'm not sure if it was the same in the different languages, but it's dedicated. It's for anyone who has ever gotten into a pool with their shirt on. And obviously, you've already read a passage that tells us a bit about why that's relevant. But I was just curious about like whether that was always going to be the dedication, and also like who you were thinking of when you were writing the book, and what readers you were hoping it would get to.
This there was this dedication was something that came to me in a very early stage of the book, so it was always been there. It's the same in the Brazilian version. And when I was started to think about the book and think about what do I want to write, I knew that I wanted to write a fat gay kid because I've never read a book about a fat gay kid. And I wanted that to be something very personal and special. And this is something that every fat person kind of has in common, because living in Brazil, we are at a tropical country, so doesn't matter the weather, it's always hot here. And I remember looking at my childhood pictures and seeing at days with my family at the beach or at the pool, and I was always all dressed up because I didn't want nobody to see my body. And seeing those pictures as a grown up kind of hurt me in a very sad way,
Mhm.
because I wanted to go back in time and take my own shirt off and say, go there, enjoy the pool, enjoy the heat, enjoy the sun. Your body is beautiful just the way it is. And when I talk about the specific thing about going into the pool with our shirts on, it's something that can reach so many levels. The firstly the literal level, that actually going into the pool with their shirts on, and other levels like going into situations that you're not comfortable about, but you still go with a shield of protection. And sometimes when you have to wear this kind of shield so many times and all the time, it's so exhausting because we're always feeling like we're going to a war or something. We always have to protect ourselves. And this could be, we can do this for so many different reasons. But I wanted this book to be a moment for the readers to lay down and put their guards down and feel like they belong to the story and they can come into the story without all those protections.
I love that, and I love there's that piece in the book where Felipe talks about not having his shield on at the grocery store when he meets
Yeah.
his police there, and I thought that was so that really resonated with me, and I think it would resonate with anybody who is struggling with identity, because you might prepare in a school environment to have a shield on, but then you let your guard down and suddenly you're vulnerable again. And I think that's such a strength of the book, is that vulnerability is so on the page. So I mean, building off of what you're saying about, so you wanted to write about a fat gay kid, and I thought it was so interesting when you say, Felipe says he's not a victim of homophobia, right? He says
Yeah.
being gay is something that's inside me, and when people look at me, they don't go beyond my appearance. And that was something I really wanted to know more about, kind of how you made those decisions about, his relationship to his the queer side of his identity, and how you kind of balance writing about that intersection of his experience.
The intersection thing, it's always something that I love to talk about this book, because it's very different when you're a straight fat boy and you're a gay fat boy. Because when you talk about and here I'm not talking about queer culture or LGBTQ culture, I'm talking about very specifically cis male gays. And this community can be so harmful to fat people. This community can hurt us in so many different ways, and all those microaggressions we have to hear every day. So when I talk about these intersections, Felipe has some very specific things that he has to deal with because he's fat and gay at the same time. And when I was coming up with who Felipe would be, there's this thing I always carry with me when I'm writing anything that I'm writing. I like to treat my characters with love and respect. I like to treat my characters like I want to be treated. So I could put him in a very toxic environment. I could not give him a cool mom like his mom is. But when he always suffers so much in this book about all his self-hate and all his insecurities, that I wanted to balance this. I wanted to give him a break in the sense of, okay, homophobia and not being accepted by his parents, it's not going to be an issue for him. This is going to be a self-love journey. And sometimes I was questioning about how unreal this could be and how unrealistic his mom is. But every time I go into on those times when I had physical events and I had the opportunity to talk to readers and reach out to readers, I always heard stories about how Here the Whole Time was a book that connect them to their parents, that they used to approach their parents with some subject that is always a subtext inside the book.
Yeah.
So I think that in our generation, there could be so many moms like Philip's moms, so many loving and
Oh,
accepting
yeah.
moms. And when I was writing his mom, it was this what I'm talking about. I used to to have all of those moments of love and tenderness with my own mom, and I decided to put all the good stuff of my mom in Felipe's mom
Yeah.
and leave all the bad stuff behind, or give it a bit to Caio's mom.
Is your mom watching right now? Um,
I think she is. She
Hi,
asked me
mom.
for the link. I don't know if she's here.
Um,
If she's here,
well, that
hi,
actually, I
mom.
think, one really interesting thing about it is you're right. There are lots of moms out there, especially in this generation, who are probably as wonderful as Felipe's mom. And if any are struggling, then this is such a good model for those parents. I mean, if they read her, maybe it'll help them. But it does lead me to another question, which is like, I noticed that Felipe has all the adults in his life are incredibly supportive. It's not just his mom. It's the librarian is amazing. He talks about his grandmother who sounded amazing. His therapist is amazing. Even the teacher in one little scene in the beginning is amazing, but they're all women. And so he doesn't, by the end of the book, I was like, this is so interesting that he doesn't seem to have like any male mentor figure in his life. And I was wondering if that was something that you made a decision about, or if it's something that just happened.
It it actually just happens, but I think it's because of all my daddy issues. I don't know. Because I've never been able to write a cool dad until this year. The book that I'm writing right now, it has my first cool dad ever. But I grew up being a mama's boy, I grew up just me, my mom, my sister, all my aunties, and I was surrounded by women growing up, and that was just my reality. And when I started writing this, it was not something that I did consciously. I think it was just like, oh, Felipe needs some support right now. Okay, let's put another woman. it was natural to me, and right now, looking in retrospect, I think it was because it resonates so much with my own experience. And
Yeah.
this book is so personal in so many levels that in a certain way it just happened. And I like it that way.
No, I thought it was so fascinating. And I also thought, obviously, we haven't discussed Caio yet, so I want to discuss him because he's such a great character. And obviously, he doesn't have that experience of having the
Yeah.
supportive mom and the supportive parent. So I think you do a really great job of showing the different experiences. And, one thing that I think, a lot of young readers obviously need guidance with is the coming out process. So I think
Yeah.
the fact that you showed two kids who are at such different points in that coming out process was so interesting. And I'm curious kind of like, what your advice would be for young kids who read this book and, are at different stages of that process, you know.
Uh, this is such a hard thing to talk about. I think you must have been through this process a lot too, by getting reached out by young readers asking advice to coming out. And this is such a delicate subject because at the end of the day, we know we know our families more than anyone else. We know the environment we are. We know the protection or the harm that we can suffer from something like this. But I think what I truly believe and what I try to transpass into this book is respecting your own time, respecting your own pace, and knowing that of course you see other kids growing with loving and accepting parents. You see other people living the life that you dream to live, and sometimes it feels like something that it's so distant from your reality. But you have to respect your time. You have to know when it's the right time for you. When you're a queer kid, you know the right time. I think it's something just hits us in a certain way, and we know what the right time it is. And the important thing is to respect your own pace and respect your own decisions, because at the end of the day you are you, and no one will go through through this process
Yeah.
except from you.
Yeah. And it's so nice. I'm so thrilled that your book is here in the US and that Lucas's book is here in the US because, in the US, I think sometimes we lose sight of, the fact that the queer community is global and that coming out in one country is not the same. I mean, I get messages
Yeah,
from people in Iran who have heard of, my books and they can't usually get their hands on them there. But,
yeah.
kids also have to first and foremost think of their safety too. And, as much as we want to celebrate coming out, we also have to celebrate the fact that not everybody can come out, at the same way, at the
And
same
we
time.
have to be here for those people
Of course.
today, tomorrow, and in 10 years. Those people have to know that the community will always be there for them.
Yeah, always, always. And we have to celebrate that whole tapestry of experience.
Yeah.
So thinking obviously, like I just brought up Lucas, but like both of your books, it's pretty amazing that two queer Brazilian books have made it to the US
Yeah.
and that they've shined a light on, the experience of being queer in Brazil. And so I'm just curious, like what, for those of us here in the US, like what do you see as the differences? Because like when I read your book, I see so many similarities. Even when I think about like a love story, which you translated, like Uncle Stephen has movie nights in my book, and Felipe's mom does musical Wednesdays and all the pop culture stuff. Like I'm kind of curious, like for the US readers, like what do you see as some of the differences in, being queer in Brazil
So
versus here?
it's hard talking about being queer in Brazil because Brazil is so huge, and sometimes it
Yeah,
feels like we
like big,
have so many countries inside one country. So my experience being queer here, right now, I talk in a place of a lot of privilege because I live in a region that's very accepting, and I can go out and hold my hands with my boyfriend on the streets. But there's a lot of states in Brazil that this is not acceptable. This is
yeah,
you're going to suffer real hard if you do this. But here in Brazil, we're not in the ideal moment. I think no place in the world is in the ideal moment,
Right.
but we are doing this kind of baby steps going through the right direction, and we have a very, very strong queer community here. We have a lot of passionate artists, and you know, you talk about this a lot in your book, how art is such a powerful weapon against hate, and how art has been moving the queer community a lot. And here in Brazil, we have so many amazing queer artists. We have so many good singers and performers and drag queens, and we have people, queer people all over the country doing so many amazing stuff. And even being in a weird year like 2020, I feel so hopeful about the future sometimes, because there's so many people doing so many great things. And I think this is what moves us, and this is something that will move the queer community in any country. It will always be making art and touching people and moving people with our arts.
Who, I mean, now that you've said that, I want to know, like, just a few, like, who are some of the Brazilian artists that you hope, get international recognition, whether in any field, music, books?
So right now we have like our international sensation, that is Pablo Vittar. I
Yeah.
love her so much. It's our most famous drag queen. We have a lot of new drag queens coming out, like Gloria Groove is such a great singer. She's a singer, she's an actress, she's super great. We have Linda Quebrada, which is another great artist. We have so many people. We have Urias, who's a trans singer doing so many great things for the community, and doing music like nobody else is doing right now. And people are talking about another artist that I may forget, Lineker. Lineker is a non-binary singer here from Brazil too. Oh, so many. Luisa, it's my friend. She's doing an amazing webcomic. She posted on Twitter. She's going to be published here in Brazil, like getting a physical book next year. And she is an artist that I need to see her going global, because her stories are deeply beautiful. And oh my God, so many people. It's Brazil is full of talented
No,
and
that's so
amazing
great.
artists.
And I mean, from our conversations that I love, like I love Brazilian music and and for me, like when I read a book from a different culture, I then want to go explore that culture more. So I think it's so great that hopefully whoever's watching this will go to, wherever they listen to music and hear some of those. Okay, we have 4 minutes before I'll get to some of the amazing questions, and put your questions in the Q&A section. But I thought it would be kind of fun to just do like 4 very fast lightning round questions
Oh,
for
okay.
you. These will just be fun. I'm not gonna,
I love fun.
Number 1, who chose the Wi-Fi password Meryl Streep 123, Felipe or his mom?
Felipe, of course.
Okay, I wasn't actually sure about that. I mean, his mom does musical Wednesdays. I wanted to know. I thought maybe
But he
his mom was
loves
a
The
big
Devil
Meryl
Wear
Streep fan.
Prada. He loved Into the Woods. He's a really Mary Streep gay.
Okay, I appreciate his Meryl Streep love. Okay, you were expecting this question, but I'm going to add something to it. What is Felipe's favorite song from Kylie Minogue's new album, and what is Caio's favorite song?
So I was so expecting this song that I wrote my official top 5, and it's right here in my notes app. And this is I don't have one for Felipe and one for Caio, but I have those 5 songs that really set the mood for here the
Yeah,
whole time. And I decided I overthink that a lot. And I decided that Monday Blues is the official song from this book,
yeah.
because when she sings, I was wishing my time away, but now I'm wishing for another day. It's so the last chapter, because Felipe at the beginning of the book he just wanted those vacations to spend so fast, and at the last day he just needs another day with Caio. So Say Something, it's another song that I think that resonates so much with both of them.
Yeah.
And Hey Lonely, because I think it's a cute song to Caio to sing with Felipe, like, hey Lonely, what you doing for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
As I said on Twitter, fine wine for having a pool party. And I love it to dance on the living room with
Oh,
his
yeah.
mom. I think this is my
That's
official top
amazing. I'm obsessed with your dedication to this question. It just
5.
makes me so happy. Yeah, everybody go listen to Disco. Okay, if you could choose one country in the whole world for the book to be translated in and come out in next, which would it be?
Oh my God. I think I think something with a different alphabet like Japan, to
Oh,
see those really eccentric covers, because Japanese covers are so different from we are used to. So I think a Japanese version of Here the Whole Time would be great to see.
oh, it would be incredible. Okay, my last lightning round question, and then I'll get to the audience questions. Has Caio gotten over thinking that Madonna's real name is Mary Jane?
Caio is so dumb
Come on.
when you talk about being gay and stuff, and he doesn't listen to old stuff. Caio is he's a millennial kid. A millennial kid, no, a Gen Z, is Gen Z. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know.
I think he's younger than millennial.
Yeah, I don't know what's the name of the next generation,
Yeah, I think
and
Gen.
it's literally the generation that I write for. That's embarrassing.
I loved it though. The idea that Madonna's name could ever have been Mary Jane really put a smile on my face. Okay, so you guys, thank you for all the questions in the Q&A. Let's get to some of them. Okay, this is one from Logan Sidorov, who says, this book made me cry so many times. So what moment was the most emotional to write?
Oh, I think that scene when Felipe is when he wakes up really early and go into his mom's bedroom and lays down with her in her bed, and they have a really honest conversation. I think that scene was really moving to me because it was a moment of connection between he and his mom, and I really loved their relationship. And I'm sorry. Even though this is a love story, this book, I think the relationship of Felipe with his mom is something so important to me in this book. And everything that they have this chance to connect and have real, honest conversations, it was always very emotional for me to write.
Yeah, I know. I love that relationship. Okay, this question is from Mateus Shikama. I want to know more about the history and the art for the US book cover. What can you tell us now?
Oh, the art from the US book covers. So this illustration, it's really beautiful. I am very obsessed. I use it as my lock screen on my phone. I really love it. It's from a UK-based illustrator called Max Reed, and it was really all up to Scholastic. They just showed me the first draft, and I was like, oh my god, I love this, because they wanted to set this a little bit dark mood to the cover and to represent all those dark nights that Felipe spent with Caio, and it has all the insecurity in his eyes, and I really love it. It's very different from the Brazilian cover. The UK cover has another way of telling the story, and this is so fun to see how the book cover can adapt to different countries, and I really think this cover is really beautiful. I love it at the first sight.
Is it this question kind of builds on that? It's from Talia Fonseca, who says, here in Brazil, the book is known as Quince Dias, but in USA, we have a different and awesome new name. How was this process? So what was the title change process?
The title change process was until the very last edits on the book. It is still called 15 Days, which is the literal translation to 15 dias. But we decided to change because to try a title that would resonate more with the American YA audience. And actually, it was David Levitan that came up with this title. And this title references a Taylor Swift song, of course, "You Belong With Me." And it took me a while.
I didn't
Oh,
make
you
that
didn't
connection.
know?
I didn't make that
Yeah,
connection.
me too, me too. It took me like 1 week to make this connection. They just told me, "Oh, what do you think about Here the Whole Time?" And I was like, Here the Whole Time. Let me process this because it's weird when your book title changes.
Oh, of course.
So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, sure, it's a good title. It's a catchy title. And let me process this for a while. And I don't know, left in work and listening to Taylor Swift on shuffle, and "You Belong With Me" begin to play. And then I realized, and I DM'd my editor at the same time. It was like, oh my God, Orlando, is this a Taylor Swift reference? And it was like,
Well,
you haven't
I would
noticed
just like to
before?
say I had no right making fun of Caio for thinking Madonna's name was Mary Jane when I didn't catch that Taylor Swift.
Yeah. So this is it.
That
When I understood that it was a Taylor Swift reference, it all came together because I love Taylor Swift and I think her songs are very the real mood for this book.
yeah, she is amazing. Okay, I have to ask this question because it's from Lucas. This is Lucas Rocha. He's using your agent's account because we are roommates. I'm getting a lot of important information here. Question now. How are you dealing with pandemic and anxiety? It's all capitalized, by the way. So how are you dealing with pandemic and
And
anxiety
anxiety?
with the publishing process in English? And what's your favorite music album of 2020?
Okay. Oh, good questions. So it's kind of weird because we're having this event online, and I wish I was there. It was it's kind of a bummer, but at the same time, I like these online events because we can gather so many different people from all over the world, and this is great. But the anxiety over the pandemic is something that I don't know. Sometimes I think I get used to it because it's been so long, and I just accepted this as okay, this is life right now, and we have to get stuff done. But being at home and being not that close with my friends as I wish, it's kind of a bummer because I wish I could go out and get a drink and go dancing tonight after this event, and this is clearly not gonna happen. So I just have to order some food and dance on the living room.
Yeah.
And about my favorite album from this year, there are so many, but I really love Lady Gaga's Chromatica. I really love Kylie Minogue's Disco, of course, Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia. And this was a really great year for the gays because we
Oh
had
yeah.
so
Yeah.
many good
I
stuff
mean,
coming out.
do you like the Jessie Ware album? Have you heard?
Oh, I am not a Jessie Ware fan because I didn't take the time to actually sit and listen to her. But Lucas is
Oh,
obsessed with her. Lucas is
that
obsessed.
album.
I have to. And when I'm in a more introspect mood, of course, I've been listening to Taylor Swift's Folklore
Oh,
on repeat all the time. It's my number one listen of the year. I have all her songs of Folklore in my top 10. And oh my God, it's such a
yeah,
great
it's so
album.
good. Well, while you're talking about music, Caroline Cardoso says, which Harry Styles songs would the protagonist of the book be obsessed with?
Oh, so funny story. This week I was given an interview, a written interview, and the viewer asked me about Harry Styles references because he saw my header on Twitter and it was Harry Styles stuff. And I spent so much time thinking about a Harry Styles song from each character. But at the end, I think Sunflower Volume 6 because it's a cute song. It's a lovable song about an intimate relationship, about things that happen inside a home, and they dance in the kitchen like it's a dance floor. And I think this is something that clearly I can imagine Felipe and Caio dancing together in the kitchen like it's a dance floor. And it's such a bop. I love this song.
Um, yeah, he's amazing. And for anyone who hasn't seen, he's the first solo man to be on the cover of Vogue here
I
in the
didn't get
US.
this info. I saw the
Did
pictures,
you
but
did you see
I
it?
didn't knew that. I see
It's
the
pretty
pictures are
wild.
great.
It's pretty wild. I mean, I think it's amazing. And the pictures were so beautiful. Oh my God, they were so incredible.
He's great. He's just
Um, yeah, okay. Douglas Vasquez asks, how is it like breaking a barrier and being one of the very few Brazilian authors getting published in English?
this is something so special to me because, as we talked about before, here in Brazil we have a lot of translated books, but we don't export books as much, especially when you're talking about YA commercial books. And the US doesn't translate a lot of books because the US produce the books, they write the books, and it's so special to be in this position right now because I think the YA community can grow so much if it just open the doors to read what another countries are doing in young adult literature right now. Because as we said before, the world is huge and we have a lot of different experiences, but at the same time we have a lot of global experiences. And when we talk about young adult literature, I think we're talking about readers that want to know more, they want to grow as persons, they want to explore the world. And being able to read books from authors from other countries, I think this is going to be a great new era. For the last years, we heard a lot about the own voices movement, and we have a lot of writers writing about their own experiences. And I think this is another level of own voices when you stop and listen to people that actually live in other countries, what they had to say, what they lived in life, what are their experiences. I think we are going into the right direction with this.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I could not agree more. Every time I'm asked the question of like, what do you hope to see more of in YA, I always say international books. There's not enough books being translated from other cultures, and that's why I'm so enamored of your book and Lucas's book. And I just hope that we expand the number of countries we're bringing books in from, and think more global. Okay, next question from Eloisa Camargo. With your today's eyes, would you change something in the book?
Yeah, I feel silly stuff, but very some details in the book that today I read, and I think, oh my god, I was so dumb at the time when Felipe does his favorite heroes list, and he lists Green Lantern. There's like a bazillion different lanterns. So why didn't I specific which Green Lantern he loves the most? Why didn't I specific which Robin he loves the most? And are those tiny details that are, oh my God, Philippe is not that dumb. He really knows about comic books. So this is the kind of stuff I would like to change. But in the overall of the story, I think I'm pretty proud of it.
Good. Okay, Bruna Miranda asks, have you ever thought about writing an illustrated or children's book?
This is something I really think about, but it's something that it's gonna take so much work. I think about a lot of things. I think about a lot of projects that I want to work on, and I wish I could have two of me to get shit done with all those things that I have to do. But illustrating a kid's book, illustrating and writing a kid's book, it's definitely something on my list.
Okay, this one is from Lucas Fogasa. What would be a recent book that Felipe or Caio would be obsessed with?
Oh my God. Like a love story,
Oh,
obviously.
you had to say that. Say another one now.
Obviously. Yeah, I had to. So, and oh my God, that's a tough one. Oh my God, I'm literally opening. Oh, You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. It was one of the most fun books that I read this year. And it's a book I recommend to everyone. And Camp by Elsie Rosen. Did
Oh,
you read Camp? It's such a fun book,
it's so
and
good.
it's such
Yeah,
a flamboyant book. I love this
yeah.
so much, and Felipe would love because of all the musical references and all the fun they have in that camp. And also, let me see. I literally opened my Goodreads right now to catch up with everything that I read this year. And
Have you
oh
read
my God,
Have you read the Black Flamingo? I love that book.
yeah, I read it last year. It's a great book. I love this so much. I cried out loud while listening to the other book because it's really moving. I love this.
Amazing,
And
amazing.
also The Fell of Dark by Caleb Rohrig. Did you read that? So good.
No, I haven't
It
read
has
that.
gay vampires. It's great.
Oh wow. No, I haven't read that.
It's great.
Okay, let's see. Okay, here's one from Daniel Ostreicher. Do you have any plans on translating Un Milhão de Finais Felices or any of your other books? I'd love to read more of your books in English.
Oh my God! I really wish we could translate Un Milhão de Finais Felizes. It translates to A Million Happy Endings. That's my second book. It's a very different book from Here the Whole Time because it is a little sadder, I think, because it doesn't have the familiar healthy environment. It's actually a book that touched the topic of a very religious and conservative family and finding your own chosen family. But it would be great. I really think about this more than I should. It would be really great.
Well, we want more of your books here. Wait, I love this question from Leonardo Leal because it's so interesting. So the question is, how do you think the characters would be dealing with this pandemic? And it's so, when I was rereading the book, it was very interesting to me, the idea that they're forced together and quarantining. But
They can't leave the house.
yeah, but that's the question. How would the characters be dealing with this pandemic?
I don't know. I think Caio's mom would be freaking out and she wouldn't let him leave the house at any costs. But I think Caio would sneak out at night to meet Felipe in the hallways. And Felipe would be also freaking out because he would be catching up the news all the time. And his mom, I think, would be the most chill of everyone because she had just so much more time to paint and stay with her
Right.
son. I think that would be it.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, from Rebecca Pizzato, did you ever plan or think about writing a sequel to Here the Whole Time?
I think about this. Uh, I don't know because I think the story when I left off, it feels very like a new beginning to Felipe, and sometimes I think I left the end very open, and I wanted to go back and see what they're doing. For English viewers, in my second novel, I put a little cameo of Felipe and Caio just to give the readers a little bit of information about what they're doing. And because I needed that, I needed to make sure that they were fine. But I think it would be fun to revisit them. But I don't know. Sometimes I think about writing a story like, I don't know, 15 years and told how they grow up or grow together or grow apart. I don't know. But I really wish I could revisit those characters, but in a new moment in their lives. I don't know. This is something I think about really often.
This is another very good question because I wanted to ask about it and I didn't get to in time. It's from Fernando Perosa. Becky is amazing and so well constructed. Could you tell us more about the inspiration to create her?
Becky is like I have amazing and supportive friends, and when I decided to turn this book into a self-love journey, actually, when you hear about all those body positive talks, we actually always hear something like, no, you have to love your body because you are beautiful. You have to feel beautiful because that's who you are. But sometimes we are not at that level. We don't feel beautiful. And what about it? What do you do next? When I don't feel beautiful, what do I do? If people tell me that I don't need those external validations, but at the same time, I feel like I kind of need it because I can validate myself by myself right now. So I decided to put in the story a lot of characters that will validate Felipe in very different ways, and not validate like, oh no, stop it, you look great. Oh no, it's not like that. You are beautiful, but validating with little actions that make him look at himself differently. And when I wrote Becky, she is like a lot of my girlfriends all together in one amazing person. And she's the kind friend that will always advise you, but always call out you and call your bullshit. And she's that kind of person that I think everybody has to have one Becky in their lives, and everybody has to be there for one Becky in their lives, because that's the kind of friend that we that's a lifetime friend.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a great character. This is a super fun question. Okay, from Mateos Shikama. Halloween was a couple of weeks ago. What do you think Felipe and Caio would be dressed up as?
Oh my God. Oh, that's a great question.
That's a fun question.
There's a Brazilian illustrator that did something that I really, really love. And she did a fan art that it's one of the most beautiful. Oh my God. I think I have this on my wall. And I have to show this because it's so brilliant. Let me show. I'm walking into the room. Right here. It's on my wall. Let me go back to the living room because my boyfriend's working. So she did this, and I think it's brilliant because it's all the cast of the book dressing up as the Wizard of Oz.
Ah!
So Felipe is the Coward Lion, and Caio is Dorothy, and Becky as the Scarecrow, and Melissa as the Tin Man. And this is a cat that probably Felipe and Caio adopted at some point in their lives. And this cat is Toto. And I think this is such a great idea. So I'm gonna steal this idea from Clary, because Clary Cabral, the illustrator that did this to me, she's great. And I think this is such a great idea. I think it's so fun to dress up in
love that. I love that they're dressed up. And Judy Garland's such a huge part of my own book. And I love that those like gay icons found their way into both of our work. Okay, this is a pretty important question from Bruna Dantes. So how do you personally relate to Felipe and Caio? Were you inspired by situations you lived when you wrote the book?
Yeah, sure, of course. Well, I decided to write this book because I needed to see myself in a book somehow. But I relate to Felipe in a lot of ways when the way he sees his body, but we do not relate in the ways we deal with society and stuff. He's very shy, and I was always the clown of the class. So this is it. I think Nika is back to tell us that we're getting close to the end. Is this?
Please feel free to keep going. I have one question that I see here that I want to end on, but finish your answer first. I'm loving that.
So no, but I think this is it. Felipe is very different. We are very different because I was always the fat kid that will do anything to make everybody laugh and to feel the most the funny guy in the room. And Felipe is not the guy. He wants to be invisible, but at the same time, we had a lot of insecurity. He has a lot of insecurities that were actually my own insecurities. So that's why this book is so personal to me in so many levels.
Okay, well, should we get that final question?
Yes. Okay. So there's just one question right at the end that I thought would be great to end on. Someone asked, so if you could choose anybody you want to play Caio and Felipe in a film or series adaptation, who would it be?
Oh my God, this is such a great question, Nika, because I can answer this question. I really don't know who would play that, but we have some really exciting news to share. So can I share some exciting news real quick before we end it? So
Yeah.
let's go because I really have all these notes right here because I wanted to say it all right. So here in Brazil, we have this producer called Conspiração. And Conspiração is the Brazilian producer with the most international Emmy nominations. And they already did like 39 films, more than 80 TV shows, including fiction, documentaries, and stuff. And what I have to tell you guys is that Here the Whole Time was optioned into a screen adaptation made by Conspiração, and the project is already being developed. And it feels so surreal to say this out loud because I've been waiting to tell you guys this for so many times, and we have a lot of things to deal with. I think you guys know how movie things can take a while and it takes a long time. But all I can say for now is that we are working together. Eu estou trabalhando junto com a Conspiração to bring this book to life in the best way possible. And this is gonna be really, really great. I'm so excited. And answering your question, Nika, I think the most great thing about this is because every time I think about who would play Felipe in a movie adaptation or a TV show adaptation, I don't know who is this actor. And I think it's so cool to think about that right now there is a fat young actor that probably think he will never get the lead role and he has to settle down for being the best friend or the comic relief, and he's about to be the main character of something. And I think that that's the most beautiful thing about all this project, because I really want to see new faces in this project, because there's people that will never get those roles if we don't write those roles. And oh my God, I'm so honored and so happy.